use in the classroom. My first tool is called Plickers, and it's actually an online tool where instead of using, mobile devices or in-class laptops or iPads, you can use cards to formally assess your students. So a way to use the cards is, so you'll make a class on the website under your account, and then you'll add each of your students into the class, and then each student gets a card, and then you'll hand those cards out to your students, and then when they complete the answers to whatever formative assessment you're giving them, then you can have the students raise the card up, and then you'll use your mobile device or iPad or iPod or anything that can scan an app, and they'll read the QR codes on the pieces of paper that you gave your students, and it'll read their answers, and it'll collect all the data, and you'll be able to check and understand how much your students gathered and how much they gained from the lesson you had just taught them, and if they've mastered the skills.
Wow.
So one critical use that I thought they could use this tool for is it can be used as a review from a previous lesson, and instead of waiting for all the time to log into a site or an exam and all those waiting time things, then you could just go in and hold up the cards, they'll answer the questions, and they'll be able to see how much they've learned. And this would work especially great for elementary school students because not all of them will have cell phones at school. So, and if you don't have a class set of iPads or laptops or anything like that, then you can't do the online, like quizzes or anything like that. So just holding up the card eliminates just the use of technology, but you scanning it with your app brings in that technology a little bit more.
Right, I like that tool a lot. It is a way to formatively assess your students, but still being confidential, so no other students can see the other kids' answers. And it's just a really neat tool to use in the classroom to assess your students, to engage them, and to bring in something new to the classroom other than pencil and paper or taking a test on the computer. It's something fun for them to do.
Yeah. And I know even when using computers or an online quiz where you have to have a login and remember your username and password and all those things, it begins to get tedious, or students forget their username or their password, and then they'll type slow if they haven't been taught to type correctly. So you just waste about 20 minutes just logging in, and then you're wait a second, we're supposed to switch to math in 10 minutes. Are they going to be able to do this at all? And so it really just makes it a quick and easy process where you can gather all that data, grade it right then and there, and know what you need to reteach or how well they understood it, or if they understood it at all.
Yeah, I think that would be perfect in my field placement right now, because my teacher loves assessing her students, but she always has handouts. So it's always the kids, writing something down, and after a while that gets kind of tedious to them. They want something new and exciting and different in the classroom. So I feel like bringing in something like this would be oh my goodness, wow, there is something fun that I can do that. And then that's without them even knowing that she's assessing what they know. So
yeah, exactly. It's nice to be able to test your students without them really knowing that they're being tested, because that word test or exam or quiz or anything that they're wait, we're being graded on this, that just makes them get nervous and stressed out, and they'll end up freaking themselves out, and then they end up messing up when really they just were too worried about being graded rather than doing the assignment.
Yeah. Wow, that tool's really neat. I did a tool called Video Ant, and this is a video annotation tool. So once you go onto the website, it'll ask for a URL to a video YouTube or a video on another website, and then it'll pull up the video on that website, and it'll allow you to like play the video until you want to stop it at a certain point to add something. So you can add in an annotation about like either questions, or if you want to go broader into that content, you want to talk more about it, give some background knowledge about whatever the video is about, or if you want to like, ask questions to the students so they're like thinking about this content, and then that rises like, wow, this may be something that I should listen to because it might be shown up later on something. So this tool also talks about, there's a documentation tab where it talks all about the tool, and then there's also the video tutorials tab, but that's down right now. So, but they'll put videos up about how to use this ant tool and how to do different things within the tool. And I think that my critical use for this was to use this in the classroom because I like videos, so because I feel like it engages my students. So if I had this, it would, I could ask them questions like before, during, and after, and see what they know already and see what they're learning during the video and see what they have learned after the video. And then I can also put in key facts that like I want to say out loud that the video doesn't cover. And I feel like that kind of plans out everything that I need to say while the video is happening.
Yeah, that's really neat to think about because so as we were kids and even now they still read books, and when you're doing a read aloud to students it's very important to like plan, and like planning is so important because you want to know like what vocab the students might need to know, or what kind of questions could they be asked about the characters so that that they understand what's going on in the story and how they feel and what different things make certain things happen, and just like that cause and effect type thing. But that's with books. But now you're saying that this tool allows you to make annotations within videos, which shows how there's a technology shift within the school system, and now instead of just having reading aloud books, they're watching videos that are projected onto the whiteboards or the interactive boards that we now have in classrooms, and you can make videos just like read alouds, whereas you can get the kids involved, and instead of just sitting there and blankly staring at a video that you don't even know if your students are paying attention to, you can stop the video and you'll know, oh, they said a difficult word here, so now I can ask them about this word, or oh, that might have been a weird phrase that they heard. So like we'll sit here and explain like what they think that means, or this character in the video did this, so we'll stop and talk about that. So it's just like a read aloud except using technology.
Yeah, and in my field placement, my teacher uses videos a lot, so I feel like this would be a way for her to plan out like what questions she needs to ask or what she really needs to touch on in certain videos for students to remember that for later content, whether it's like they're working on a handout or they have a project or a writing piece with it. I feel if you repeat what the video is saying and point out, hey, guys, this is something you guys need to know, then I feel like they're more likely to remember it for later.
Yeah. Yeah. And like even since it's online, like a lot of teachers used to do like sticky notes and all those things, and sometimes like the sticky notes fall off, or they don't stick well, or the students are like looking at the sticky notes and not what they're really supposed to be focused on. So it kind of takes away that distraction too, that the annotations are kind of like hidden in a way that you can plan but hide from the students, so they can think, oh, like this is the way it's supposed to flow together, and no stop and wait time.
Right, and sometimes when you're like planning your lessons, like you have all these questions, but then when it comes time to do it, you kind of forget. So this is a way to like, oh hey, you need to ask this. This is important to ask. So
Yeah. My second tool that I talked about was ThinkPort, and it's a website that has relevant information for just Maryland teachers. So it's strictly the state of Maryland, and it has different lesson plans and activities for early childhood grades and also K through 12. So it has a wide range of lessons and activities that teachers who may get stuck on a certain standard, or, oh, how am I going to like figure out what I'm going to do to meet this objective, or, oh, the state of Maryland wants the students to know this, like they can go to that and, use the activities there and even tweak it a little bit if they want. And it also has online professional development, which is great because then it's right there. You don't have to stay after school or, take time out of the classroom. You can look at the professional development online and teach yourself. And then when you take that, what you've learned from the website, then you can go back to your school and you can teach your coworkers and colleagues like, hey, I was on this website, thinkport.com, and like they have this professional development like site, and they had this really cool thing to meet this standard, and like it had a really cool math section and all those things, so they could just go back and bring what they've learned to make teaching methods at their school more effective. And they also have a section for parents where students can work with their parents outside of school by the parents looking at the activities online and little tips on how to get more involved in school and just like activities coming up within the state of Maryland and all those things. So it's a really good way to get the families involved in the classroom and education all over. So since this is strictly for Maryland teachers, I think this is like a great thing, and it can be used by teachers to meet the standards and expectations that the state wants them to uphold among their students, and they can help the students meet the requirements that they're expected of. And they can do that by finding the lessons and activities and learning through the professional development.
Right, I think that's a great tool because teachers now, like the new teachers, they are kind of familiar with, the standards in Maryland, but oh, I don't have this huge stack of lesson plans. What am I going to do? So if they're stuck on a lesson and they don't know what to do, they could go on there and see what lesson plans and activities they have. And then for teachers that have been teaching for a while, this is kind of a little new, so they may not have good lesson plans, or they've tried lesson plans and they haven't worked out, and they're like, gosh, that was my only idea. I don't know what else I can do. So maybe they can go on there and see different lesson plans and activities to broaden their mind, and then they can tweak them a little bit if they think of something else that may work better.
Yeah, and I know that I'm always trying to think of activities for when I become a teacher, and I know that like my goal is to teach in Maryland. So I just thought, like, as soon as I saw this website, like, oh wow, like when I become a new teacher, I'm not going to have, like you said, all like a plethora of lesson plans and everything. And yes, I can meet with like my teachers that I'm working with at the school that I get a job at, but I can also be like, oh, hey, I also found this lesson, like, let me help you out too. And that way you can like build those relationships with your colleagues as well as, teach your students the best way possible.
Right. My other tool that I did was Kahoot, and it's a way to assess students on different devices using the web. So you will go on there, and it's free for anyone. So they just have to make an account, but it's free. So they just have to put in their email address, and the students can use any type of device. So either iPods, iPads, computers, whatever is available within the classroom. And the teacher will go on and make a quiz. She can either, or he or she can make a quiz, a discussion, or a survey. So the quiz would be like a multiple choice. It could have, 2 answers like true, false, 3 or 4. And then the discussions would be amongst the students in your classroom. So they could be discussing about their different opinions about a content area that's being talked about. And then the surveys are kind of like that as well. They can key in on which they would rather have. So like what's their example would be like, what's their favorite color? So it would show like the survey about, and it will show in a bar graph about which students have the same likes. And then once you make your quiz, it'll give the teacher or instructor a PIN number, and that's all students need is the PIN number in order to do the quiz. So they would give them the PIN number, and then everyone put in the PIN number, and then you would could start the quiz. So the question would show on the whiteboard at the front, and then the students would answer on their own device. So if you have a student that's out sick or a student that's on vacation but they don't want to miss a assessment, then they could use that PIN number to assess and put in their answers for this quiz that's happening in Maryland if they're in Florida or wherever they are.
Yeah, that's
Um,
oh,
yeah, a use that I have is that this like assesses the students, but it's still confidential and it's fun, it's engaging, and it'll like be something that the students can look forward to, but them not knowing that they're being assessed like the other one. So I think that's really neat.
yeah, this is just like Plickr, like they don't know that they're being assessed, but it's still something different, and they're not just sitting down with pencil and paper and writing away and worrying about, oh, what grade am I going to get? So this is like a fun, interactive way that you can assess your students and just get a feel for what they know. It's not like a summative assessment where you're going to, oh, this determines like if they, pass the class or pass this like year. It's a way to, just track, see what you need to reteach, what they're struggling with, and then it's a great way of doing it without them actually knowing.
Right, and in my field placement, there's, some students that have like some behavior problems, but I feel like having something like this would motivate them to be like, oh, I really need to do well today because if we do, then we're playing Kahoot and they don't even know that they're being assessed, but the teacher makes it a fun environment for the students. So I feel like this would work fantastic in my field placement. The only problem is that they only have like 6 iPads in the classroom, so it'd have to be small group, which is fine because it would still work. But
yeah, that's definitely like one thing you have to think about with the technology is just like the resources your school has. But even though like you said, you only have 6 iPads, you can still make Kahoot work. And it's a different way for students to get involved and start, seeing what they know as long as, they're using it effectively.
yeah,
The last tool that I researched is called Rubistar, and this kind of goes along with assessment because it's actually a way to create rubrics to guide you along with grading assessments or even students completing assessments or activities. So on the online tool has templates and they're for particular subjects. So you can choose a math template for a rubric or a reading template for a rubric or so on. And you can customize the rubric template and make your own information into it. That way it fits the assignment that you're providing your students with. So teachers can use Rubistar to make rubrics for assignments. That way the teacher and student have a set of guidelines that they're going when they're going over the assignment, and you don't have to, wait around to make the rubric themselves. They can just have it right then and there, and they don't have to have that like waiting around what kind of like template should I make? Like, oh, I don't really know like what I should do to like construct a rubric at all. So having the template, allows them to have more time to actually plan the lesson than just like making something that just looks good for the students to, track themselves and for you to track when grading.
right. That would be a good tool to use like in my future classroom because if I want my students to do all the same things, have the set of guidelines that I want them to meet, then I'm going to need to make a rubric, but I have all this other stuff to do, so having a template would be nice and easy, and all the students would get the same rubric so they'd know the expectations that I have, and that's really something I would use in the classroom.
Yeah, and I know in my language arts class, Dr. Andy's just taught us about rubrics and how important they are to have when writing, which rubrics aren't only used for writing, they can be used in math and science and social studies as well. But she was telling us how there's different rubric generators that allow you to create rubrics online instead of just making them yourselves. And of course, I didn't really, follow that. I went and made my own. But now, like after researching Rubistar, I'm like noticed how like it just eliminates a lot of time of making the whole thing, whereas you can just stick in the information and you have a lot more time on your hands to actually plan and create the activities that you want your students to do. So it's a great way to, just make it on your own, but still have a guidance with you.
Right.
Well, I was really pleased with your tools, and I'm glad that we got to meet and talk.
Yes, I will be looking forward to using your tools in my classroom.
Same here. It was nice seeing you. I'll
Thank
see you
you.
next time.
Bye.
Bye.